LBU gets another player in its ranks. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Ryan Snyder, our recruiting reporter for BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We are back, and we are here to talk about Terry Wiggins. So this is one that if you follow the Blue White Illustrated live show, our recruiting show, Ryan and Sean Fitz have talked quite a bit about. Normally I let you introduce the player, but I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm itching to go. It's been too long since we've been here to talk about stuff.
We're just happy you have power, man. I was worried about you up there in the woods. So
yeah, we're up and running, thankfully, just in time to give the people their latest commitment. So tell us about Terry Wiggins.
Yeah, 6'3", 205-pound. Looks like a true outside linebacker for Penn State. Moves well, versatile, rushes off the edge. He's done a lot for Coatesville this year. He really, his stock after his junior year really took off. And of course, now he's a four-star prospect by On3, was just recently moved to four-star status by On3. He was right outside it with an 89, and now he's ranked 221 in the country, number 15 at the linebacker position, and number 6 overall in PA. Of course, that's On3, but On3 then moving him up to a four-star also made him a four-star in the industry rankings. It's, of course, that's what we use for our team rankings, and so Penn State team ranking wise is sitting at 8 4-stars and 6 3-stars now to give them 14 total. So just the background on Wiggins is pretty simple. There's not a lot of ups and downs and visits all over. He picked up an offer from Penn State in October. The staff they knew he was a good athlete, really wanted to see some film on him. And you got to mid-October point, about over halfway of his junior season. And that's when Penn State decided to offer. Really, it kind of came down. His official visits were Kentucky, Syracuse, and Cincinnati. He did take that official visit to Kentucky. That was back on April 11th to the 13th, I believe. And, he's not obviously going to go to Syracuse and Cincinnati now. And I expect him to take an official visit to Penn State that May 30th weekend with the rest of the commits. But really only took a couple visits to Penn State. He was at the whiteout game, and then I believe he returned for the January 25th junior day. Yep, there it is on the screen. And then was just back on campus last weekend for the whiteout, or the blue-white game, excuse me.
The blue-whiteout.
It's pretty cut and dry. A couple trips to Rutgers, couple trips to Syracuse. There were certainly other schools interested. Maryland was one. I know Minnesota was a school that recently was starting to dig in there a little bit. And, I would have been curious to see if he did, drag this into June and see which schools stop by Coatesville to give him a look, especially with Maxwell Hiller there, who's expected to be a really, good 2027 prospect, which, by the way, getting Terry Wiggins now, it certainly shouldn't hurt Penn State for Hiller moving forward. But, we'll worry about that later. So, but I think Penn State's really happy with this one because
can I ask you a quick question? Because I want to know a follow up there, but what's the level of competition at Coatesville? I'm unfamiliar with that particular area.
Solid. Yeah, no. That's downtown area. Yeah. It's higher schools. It's not like small school or anything like that. It's like every region in PA, it has its ups and downs and all those things, fluctuates a little bit, but Coatesville's always produced good talent. They play, higher football, higher classification, and it's certainly respectable.
Gotcha. And then Penn State very happy with Terry Wiggins' commitment because I cut you off there.
Oh, I'm just saying it's a play that they've really kind of circled since that offer. It was okay. Obviously, they're offering an in-state player. Penn State's always pretty thorough when they offer in-state guys because the Penn State hands out a ton of offers, right? And a lot of those offers are kind of get national guys to come visit. That's what a lot of those offers are. But in-state, they understand that that's a different threshold, a different standard that you have to keep. So really, once he got that October offer, mid-October, by I would say mid-November, his name was consistently mentioned as like, okay, this is going to be absolutely one of our top, handful of linebacker prospects, especially in the region. Matthew Kanu, obviously down in Virginia, is probably the other one that I think Penn State has really circled. Of course, Nick Abrams was at McDonough, or is at McDonough, but he's kind of eliminated Penn State. He's not going to take an official visit. Says Penn State's maybe still in the mix, but I think the writing's on the wall with that one. So to me, it's okay. You have Wiggins now. He's your true outside linebacker that you had to get at least one. I think you need two, honestly, in this class as far as athleticism at that position. And then you have Kanu, of course, who I think will probably play the Mike position. He's not committed right now. I'm not trying to see but he's pretty open about Penn State being a top school for him. So we'll see where things stand in June.
He seems to be, just as a side note, Canoe seems to be a guy that could also bump to the edge. He's a big kid with good length. I don't know, generally the parameters, size, and length and all those things, but a big body guy that likes to come downhill. And Wiggins is interesting. You mentioned the athleticism. I don't hate 6'3" for a linebacker. I don't hate the size, the frame, all these things here. I don't want to make the comparison to Tony Rojas because that's a little extreme. The point being, though, playing a lot of edge outside linebacker in a defense that has him on on the line of scrimmage quite a bit. But as you saw here in his junior film, got to play a little bit more in space, a little bit more coverage, a little more awareness of those areas. But this is kind of the mold for Penn State, I think, is you take a guy who might be a defensive end in high school, play that position with the athleticism, the uber athlete, and then that guy plays in space. So there's just a translation from the athleticism and what you see on film at the high school level to learning the position and learning to play fast with all those tools at the next level. But if you want a frame to build on, you want athleticism, sideline to sideline speed. 6'3", looks like he's got long arms. I love everything about this particular commitment and somebody who, is a 4-star prospect. But Ryan, I'm always looking for, like, not all 4 stars are made the same. And you just mentioned that Terry Wiggins recently elevated to a 4-star. Yeah. There are certain guys that are going to outplay the rankings because their athleticism warrants that if they then put the other things on film together at a later date. He's firmly in that camp. And this is where Penn State really wins a lot of these battles and to look at where he is in the class rankings. And I think this is just an interesting commentary on where Penn State lives as a 221, right? In the on 300. So high 200s, low 200s. Got to go the opposite way with math. But a guy who I think could, athletically grow into somebody who is a top 150 player once he gets to college. And Terry Wiggins very much is that to me. I love linebackers with athleticism. I love guys that can run and chase in space. If they got 2 or 3 of these guys, I think Penn State would be in really good position in this Jim Knowles defense, which is changing some of the expectations for these linebackers, on the defensive side from what you're asking of both of the box linebacker positions.
Yeah. They really need some athletic outside linebackers in this class. I think I've always thought that the goal really is you get Wiggins, you get Canoe, and then you try to get one of those national guys. Cozy Akpala down in Houston, for example. Rodney Colton from Georgia, just came up, supposed to take official visit. We'll see what happens there. We still got to monitor Ellis Alloway down in Florida, who he wasn't able to make it this spring, but I'm telling you, like, Penn State's really high on him. He's a under the radar kind of prospect at the moment, but I know Penn State's really high on him. There's others as well. So I've always thought that that's the goal. You get the 2 guys in the region that you've circled and identified for a long time. I'm confident in saying that both Wiggins and Canoe were higher on Penn State's board than Nick Abrams. I think that's part of the reason Nick Abrams isn't taking an official visit to Penn State, because I don't know how hard they were really pursuing him down the stretch here in recent months. So right now, you got one of those 2 regional guys that we know they really wanted. Let's see what happens with Canoe. And then, like I said, there's a handful of lines out there for Penn State to snag one of those national linebackers who have really good athleticism as well. And that has to be the goal, because they certainly need some speed at that position right now.
Any final thoughts here? I know you just gave us kind of a summation, a wrap up of the position, but Wiggins, the class of 2026, we are now officially into official visit season, where there is an official visit. Yeah. We're recording this on Friday, May 2nd. So there's officially an official visit going on this weekend. What do you know? What do you want to leave Penn State fans with when it comes to recruiting, Wiggins, or whatever you're looking at in the big picture here for the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, Brandon Arrington, right? 5-star cornerback from California. Look, I mean, I think we all know it's going to be probably tough for Penn State to land him, but he is on campus this weekend. And hey, look, obviously there's a good relationship there. But what I would stress is it's the contact period. And a lot of major off-campus visits are going to take place over the coming weeks. And it's really going to separate, Penn State and a handful of other schools with a lot of these guys. They all have official visits set for June, and most of them will go through with them. But these in-home visits and everything that's got to come up over these coming weeks are massive. They oftentimes kind of go underreported a little bit because we don't know where all 10 coaches are off and things like that. But it's a really important time, and obviously we'll do our best to track everything we can coming up here in the coming weeks. But this is big, man. May, we're, like we said on the show, May into June and then into early July, all those commitments. Like it's full recruiting season now for the next 8, 10, 12 weeks.
Yeah, keep your head on a swivel because there's going to be more of these coming, even with the number they have in the class of 2026 already. For Ryan Snyder, I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. The best way to stay tuned and stay up to date is to subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, number one. And then number two is to subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. The second one of those things is absolutely free. And the thing I've been saying is it's also calorie free. It takes very little effort to just go and click that button, which you can see right below the video. If you're watching here, you hit subscribe. And then if you enable notifications, you know the next time there is a commitment to Penn State and we have a conversation about it here on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. Ryan Steiner will be back next time. News break.